Well, fantastic, and I'm really excited to get into this next segment, the decision maker meeting itself. And again, this is your goal when you're out prospecting every day, is to actually set these meetings and to go in. What you want to make sure that you do is when you set the meeting that it goes the way that you want it to go, that you can kind of control the flow of the meeting. There is a skill, there is an art in going in and not just presenting our information, not just giving them a bunch of facts, but getting a group from wherever they're at the beginning of the meeting to I'm interested and I want to do this for my employees. We want to bring this benefit in as a benefit for our employees. And notice I say wherever they're at. Some people are, when you come in and meet with them, some people are interested right off the bat. You mentioned identity theft, and because of something in their life, maybe they were a victim, or maybe somebody that they know, a friend or a neighbor or a family member was a victim, they have an automatic built-in interest. Some don't. Some, when you walk in those doors, they're saying, I don't even know why I set this appointment up, right? And so from wherever they're at the beginning, your job is to get them to, I want to offer this benefit, these plans to our employees as a benefit. So I want to share with you some tips on doing that. Again, your goal is to help the decision maker understand the need for the legal access plans and identity theft protection. And I should say there, and or the identity theft protection. Some companies just want to offer one or the other, and that's fine. And to schedule a workshop or enrollment with their employees. So here are some tips in doing that. Number one, dress for success. Again, we talked about that in the prospecting. It's especially if you're going in person, you ought to be able to have a better feel of the company when you go in to do the actual decision maker meeting. You've already been in there. So notice what kind of clothes were people wearing. Was this a casual business place? Was it one where people are gentlemen are in coats and ties? Try to match. In fact, my rule of thumb is when I go into a company, especially for an enrollment or a decision maker meeting, to usually go one step up from wherever they're at. So if they're in slacks and a polo shirt, I'll do slacks and an open collar dress shirt. If that's what they're wearing, I'll put a tie on or maybe a jacket. But I kind of try to mirror them and then maybe go one step up is the general rule in working with companies. Make sure that you leave your cell phone in the car. I mean, that cell phone can be such a big distraction. Make sure that you just leave it in the car. Don't just say I'm going to turn it off or I'm going to put it on vibrate. Because I've seen so many people that a phone goes off and they say, oh, I thought I had that off. And it can be a big distraction, but the worst thing is it makes you look bad. It makes you look very unprofessional when that's the case. I know some of you keep your calendar on your cell phone. That's okay. Go buy you a little calendar that you can bring in, and then when you get out to your car, whatever you scheduled, transfer that to your phone. If that's your primary calendar, that's fine. I've just learned that the cell phone can be such a big distraction. I remember one time I was field training a lady, and we were in the middle of the decision maker meeting, and this lady's phone went off. And bless her heart, she was a sweet lady. She did not do it intentionally, but her phone went off, and that was the first problem. The second problem was the ringtone was some, funky song, kind of thing. It was not a professional ringtone, so that looked bad. The third problem was instead of just silencing it, she answered the call. She took it. And, hello, oh, I'm in a meeting right now. The fourth thing that went wrong was she had the speakerphone on. So not only were we hearing her side, we were hearing the whole conversation. And so that's probably an extreme case, but the point is the same. Leave your cell phone in the car. You want to, and this is probably the most important thing I can stress, establish a relationship of trust. See, when you're going into a company, that person that you're working with has to like you. They have to trust you. They're not going to make a decision based on your benefit. Let me say that again. They're not going to make a decision based on your benefit. If they did, everyone would say yes. Because it's not the same, it's not different benefits we're bringing in. It's the same benefit, yet some people say no, some people say yes. What are they really saying yes or no to? Yeah, you. That's exactly right. When I walk in, they're saying yes or no to me. Do they like me? Do they trust me? Those are very important questions to ask. And if I'm walking out and I'm getting a lot of no's, I've got to be real with myself and say, look, I'm not doing something right. I'm not establishing a relationship of trust. And so here are some tips on doing that. Number one, when you set up a decision maker meeting, do some research. Before you go in and meet with that person, do some research. I mean, look them up online. Google the company. You might find news articles. You might find awards that they won. we've had associates who have gone into a group just for that decision maker meeting, and they mentioned something. Hey, I saw that you were awarded in the newspaper last summer, one of the best places to work, or something like that. And what you'll find is those decision makers are proud of that. And so do some research, look them up, become familiar with what their company does, so that you can be more educated when you actually get into the meeting. As far as again, establishing that relationship of trust. Sincerely compliment the decision maker. That's such an important thing. And notice it's compliment, but it's also what? Sincerely. Do it sincerely. You got to find something that you can compliment. Oh, I love what you're wearing, or oh, this office is beautiful. You don't got to keep it appropriate, but you can find something nice to say. That's one way to get people to like you. How to win friends and influence people. Dale Carnegie talks about just be nice, right? Smile and say something nice to people. Compliment them. And we could work on that. We could all become a little bit better at just finding something nice to say to other people. Look for conversation starters. So when you walk into an office, I love when I go into a company and I can do that decision-maker meeting in that person's office, versus a boardroom. Here's why. There are very few conversation starters in a boardroom. But in an office, you've got pictures, you've got plaques, you've got degrees hanging on the wall. Oh, I see you went to whatever university, right? Those are all conversation starters. If I go into a room, into an office, you'll notice I don't even get in, I don't even sit down until I've gone to those conversation starters. So I'll walk in the room, and I'll look at the plaque on the wall, or the degree, or the pictures, and I'll immediately comment on those. And before I even sit down. And people love talking about themselves. So notice when you do that. Now, keep in mind, sometimes their interests are going to be at variance with yours. Okay, they might have gone to a university that was the arch rival of the university that you attended. That stuff does not need to come up, right? So if they're your arch rival, just laugh it off. That's okay. It's all about them in a decision maker meeting. It's not about you. So don't say, oh, tell me about your family, and then they start to answer, and you cut them off and start talking about your family. Let them talk about themselves. That's How to Win Friends and Influence People is the best book that I've ever read. It's a book that was written a lot of years ago, but the wisdom is there, and it's still applicable today. I recommend that you read that and apply what Dale Carnegie teaches in that book. Those conversation starters are a great way to build that relationship of trust. Use opening questions. I'm going to go over some examples of some opening questions, but before you get right into the benefit, before you get into business, you got to use some opening questions. And we'll talk about those. But then also be sensitive. Watch for different types of decision makers. You'll notice there are some decision makers that when you ask about their family, the picture on the wall, or you ask about the degree or the plaque, or, oh, look at that fish you caught, you like fishing, that they'll talk. And some are just so conversational. They'll get right into it and start talking. I like to work with that type of person because, it's easy to build that relationship of trust. Some are not. Some, they will give you very short answers. Is that your family? Yes. Yeah, okay, tell me about it. Is that your daughter? Be careful also, by the way, be careful not to say, is that your granddaughter? And they say, no, that's my daughter, right? So you got to be careful and sensitive there, but say, who is that in the picture? That's a great, safe way to ask it. And then if they're giving you real short answers, they're probably not the type that's going to be very conversational. You need to recognize that that's the type of person you do need to get down to business with. And they'll respect that. That's how you build a relationship of trust. They'll respect that more than just someone that wants to sit there and talk. There are both kinds of decision makers out there, so kind of watch for those different types of personalities. Here are just some sample opening questions that you can use. How long have you worked here? How long have you worked for the company? If it's the owner of the company, you could say, tell me about how you started the company. I love asking these little simple questions. Here's another one. What did you do prior to working here? If you're meeting with an HR person, you say, how long have you worked here? Well, I've been here for 3 years. Oh, great. What did you do prior? Those are great conversation starters. It gets them talking about themselves. Tell me more about what your company does. That's where research comes in. If you've researched them, you can talk about some of the things that they do, but get them talking about their company. Again, the more someone talks about themselves, especially positive things, the easier it is to build that relationship of trust. What kind of benefits do you offer currently? That is a huge question. Before I take out my proposal, before I'm going to go over my information, I want to know what they're doing now. Here's why. If they're already offering a lot of voluntary benefits, I want to know that. I'm going to recognize that as a company, it's going to be a little easier to close. And so if they don't do any voluntary benefits, I need to know that. But that's a good question. What kind of voluntary benefits do you currently offer? Tell me about your benefit program. What are you currently doing for your employees? And again, get them talking about that. You'll find ways that you can kind of fit what we do into the model that they already have if you're willing to ask some of those opening questions. Again, these are conversation starters. I really feel that one of the worst mistakes that you can make is to walk in, sit down, and get right into business. I mean, I'm telling you, without knowing anything about the person, what type of personality they are, you haven't established a relationship of trust. I just think that that's so important to do. It will make you a lot more successful at doing these decision-maker meetings. Make sure that when you go into a company that you have the right information. When you're sitting down with that decision maker, you want to bring a nice packet. You want to bring something that looks very sharp and professional. I hope you're using these white folders. These look really good. They have the proposal inside. It just looks good. Again, your image is an important part of your success. And that goes from your dress, the way that you do your hair. Of course, your materials play a big part of that as well. You want to make sure that this is not a huge, bulky packet. You don't want to give them every piece of information that you can about Harvard Risk Management. Just a few simple things that you'll find inside. A proposal, maybe a flyer about the identity theft workshop. I like putting sometimes an article, especially if it's a local article from your newspaper or from the internet, but it's a local story about identity theft. Works really well in there. Another important thing to include in that is a reference list of other companies that offer this benefit. I love having that as well. But again, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a very complicated packet. That's what you're going to leave behind. And the number one tool that you're going to use in the meeting, during the meeting, is that proposal itself. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few different pages of this proposal. And we'll start with this first page that says lost time equals lost money. Now, that is not the first page of the proposal. You'll notice the first page is company information. I normally skip that. I don't spend any time on that page. This is the first page that I open to. Now, again, I'm sitting there with the decision maker. I've established a relationship of trust. We've had some great conversations. Sometimes that's 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 30 minutes. I mean, I've done a lot of decision maker meetings where we had 10 minutes, but it turned into an hour meeting because we were talking, and especially if they're the conversational type. I mean, those are my favorite. They're fun because it's really easy to get to know them and build that relationship with them. But when I get down to business, I'm going to bring out this proposal. I like to ask permission to go through it. I like to say, would you mind if I just go through some information with you? Of course, they say yes. That's the reason that you're there. And then I skip the companies. I turn right to the first page that says lost time equals lost money. It's actually page number 2. And a couple of different things that I'll say while we're on this page. I'll say at Harvard Risk Management, we are serious about offering programs that benefit employees, but also the company as well. And I'll tell you that's important if it's an HR person, but it's ultra important if it's the owner of that company. He or she is going to want to know that what we're doing helps that company as well as the employees. So I like to point that out. And then I refer to the lost time equals lost money. I'll say something like, when an employee becomes a victim of identity theft, his or her personal problems can very quickly become personnel problems, right? In other words, they take a lot of time. And the next page is full of facts about identity theft and legal situations. I'm not the type that's going to spend a lot of time sharing those facts. I might point out one of them or two of them, but I'm just going to make the point that when someone gets hit by identity theft, they spend a lot of time cleaning up the mess, and a lot of that time is work time. I mean, it's between 8 and 5. And I think normally the decision maker gets that. They understand that. I mean, that's not a difficult concept for them to comprehend. So I like to point that out. And then I move right into the next page, which is the 5 types of identity theft. And I'll go through some of these. This is a great time to introduce the identity theft workshop. I'll talk about how we like to come in and not just market a product to employees, but actually educate employees as well. And so we'll talk about that. I'll say something like, most of your employees, when they think about identity theft, they immediately think of their credit, which is only a small part of the whole problem. And I might point out there that it's about 17% of identity theft that's related to credit cards. And now when I've got a proposal, I've also got my pen there with me, and I like to kind of mark it up. When I'm going through the proposal, I like to circle things, and I've just found that doing that helps them pay more attention, but it also, if that person is going to go discuss the information with somebody else, it gives them things that we've spoken about during our meeting. They can open up that proposal, see what I've circled, and it jogs their memory as to what we talked about. And so I like to kind of mark it up a little bit for them, maybe put a star by something. But I'll circle that financial, and I'll say, but that's only a small part of the problem. Look at these other types of identity theft. And we'll just kind of talk about them. I'm not going to do a sermon and talk, for 30 minutes about the different types of identity theft. You'll learn as you grow in the business, as you learn more information, you get more information. One of the most difficult things to do, but also one of the most important things to do, is not share everything that you know. You'll be talking about something, and a story will pop into your head, or something will come into mind, an experience, and you'll want to share it, but you got to realize you got to keep on moving. Otherwise, what could take 5 minutes could become a 30-minute conversation, and you'll start to lose interest of your prospects doing that. But we'll talk about some. I'm going to watch for areas that might spark their interest, the decision maker's interest. That's really important. I remember I was out in San Diego with our director of marketing out there, and we were doing a decision maker meeting with a big hospital. This was several thousand employees, and this was their head of HR for the entire hospital. And this lady was very, very nice. I was going through this information. I was kind of hitting a couple of highlights about this, and I noticed that the Social Security identity theft really sparked her interest. She said, in fact, tell me about that. And so I talked about employment. I talked about how thieves are using Social Security numbers to gain employment. And then she shared with us, she said, the reason I wanted to know more about that and the reason that interests me is we just had an employee that we terminated because we found out that they were using a stolen Social Security number. They had passed their background check, but it came to our knowledge that they were using a Social Security number that was not theirs, and so we terminated them. And as that employee was walking out of the building, the employee turned around and said, you have no idea how many more there are in here doing the same thing. And the decision maker was like, oh, my goodness. So, obviously that interested her. You're going to want to watch for times where they raise an eyebrow or something that shows, hey, I'm interested in that. That might be a clue to talk more about that specific topic. And then I get into the protection. I actually go through and talk about the service itself, the Identity Theft Shield. I'm going to cover the benefit. It's a pretty simple benefit to cover. I'm going to talk about why Harvard, as a third-party broker, our position, what makes that a powerful position. How we could go out, we could offer whatever we want, but we have chosen to offer this Identity Theft Shield. What that does is it takes the stress off of the decision maker. That it takes away the feeling that they need to go do a bunch of research, right? They don't want to do a bunch of research. They're busy just like you and I. And so I love addressing that we're a third-party broker. We've done the market research. This is the best protection that we found. And, of course, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the restoration. As we talked about earlier, it's not just the credit monitoring and the credit report. You can get those at a lot of different places, but this is the only true restoration plan in the market today. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to do a presentation just like I want that decision maker to buy the membership himself or herself. I'm going to give some facts on Kroll, not a whole lot there. Again, not everything that I know about Kroll, but just a couple of facts to show that they're a legitimate company and that they are a company that business is going to want to work with, and why we enjoy being affiliated with them. And so we'll talk about Kroll and just the protection itself. I'm going to spend some time talking about the minor coverage, and especially if I've already established that person has kids, I'll spend a little extra time talking about that minor coverage. As a father, as a parent, that's something that's so important to me, is that Kroll has agreed to cover children under that rider as well. So I'll go over that benefit and the identity theft benefit. And then here comes the key. The next page, if you turn the page, you see the legal information there, or the information about the legal plan. But I want to talk to you for a second about how to introduce that. I say, you want to softly introduce the group legal plan. And by the way, legal access plan is a great generic term for individuals. For group legal plan is a great generic term for those types of memberships. I'm going to softly introduce that. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to, before I turn that page, I'm going to say something like, many times what we'll do is we'll combine the identity theft coverage with a group legal plan. And then I'm going to ask the question, have you ever looked at offering a group legal plan for your employees? And I'm going to listen to that person's answer. Here's why. Sometimes they'll say no. In fact, a lot of the times they'll say no, or they'll say, we've looked at that, but we've never done it before. What I'm really looking there is for anything negative. If, some companies, they may have been called on a long time ago by someone with even a different provider, and it just was not a good experience. And they might say, oh yeah, we've looked at that. We're not interested in that at all. I'm glad that I asked the question if that happens, because I don't have to offer it. If they're negative about a legal plan, they don't want to do that for whatever reason, I'm just going to turn 2 pages and go right to the pricing. And that's okay. You don't have to try to convince them that a legal plan is a good thing. I remember we were working with a large city here in the Dallas Metroplex, and this municipality, they already had a legal plan. It was through a different provider. It was not through Legal Shield. It was through a different provider. And so we mentioned the legal plan. We softly brought that into the conversation, and the HR director said, no, that's not, we already have that. We're not interested in offering it. Okay, no problem. We were just wanting to offer the identity theft protection. We got a yes. We got in front of their employees. We signed their employees up. At a later point, we went back and said, by the way, the Legal Shield legal plan, group legal plan, has a lot of things that the one that you currently have does not have. And really, they let us offer the legal plan right along with the identity theft. What we found is most of the employees that signed up for both. But you don't have to address that at the first meeting. You just want to get a yes. You don't want to put roadblocks in the way. You want to get a yes. So if that's to one of the products, great. That does not mean that it can't change in the future. So if they're neutral, though, then that's, that you want to spend time on the legal plan, and we're going to get into that. I like to say things like the legal plan is a powerful benefit because most employees have reasons to use it right now, right away. I love talking about that usability factor. I mean, the most benefits that they offer, the employees can't use right away. They can't sign up and get immediate value like they can with this legal plan. So I want to stress that. And then I'm going to actually do a presentation for the decision. For the decision maker. I'm going to take them through. I'm going to show them the consultation and the letters and phone calls. I'm going to share a good story with them. Here's why. And it took me a long time to learn this. I want that decision maker ready to sign up by the time I'm done. And I love it when the decision maker says, I know I'm going to take it out. I love it even more when they say, I want to sign up right now. And I may not sign them up right then. I may wait till the enrollment because personally I want them filling out their paperwork at the enrollment to set the tone for other people to follow. But I love it. That means I've done my job. I've gotten that person interested enough that they want to take out the benefit. You will find that companies will say yes so much more often if the decision maker is on board. Not only will they say yes and get you in, but they'll get you an enrollment where you can actually get in front of more employees. They'll give you an optimal enrollment setting to actually roll out the benefit. So I love that. That is my goal. The next page is pricing. And we'll get right into pricing. I'm going to flip that page. I love using a power line. Like, one reason why we enroll so many employees is the benefit is actually very affordable. To enroll in both plans is only $25.90 a month, which breaks down to only $5.98 a week. And notice the way that you talk about that, the way that you refer to that, you just got to act like that's nothing. I mean, because really it is. I mean, we're talking 87 cents a day. It's not a lot of money. But you have to have that attitude for them to be able to mirror that attitude. And then I love this next question. I'll say that breaks down to only $5.98 a week out of their check. How often are your employees paid? Is it weekly or biweekly? What am I doing there? Why is that such an important question? I'm bringing in payroll deduction, right? That's one of the most sensitive things in a group. I mean, you'll find that as you're out there working with groups. That's an issue that you have to address as payroll deduction. This is a very soft way to bring that into the conversation. How often are your employees paid? Is it weekly or biweekly? And whatever they say, semi-monthly, biweekly, weekly, whatever, I'll say, see, that would be the deduction. They say it's weekly. See, their deduction is only $5.98. No wonder most people buy it. I mean, what a deal. And you get right back to value, right? And that decision maker 9 times out of 10 is nodding their head, agreeing with you, and seeing the value of what you do. You're going to cover the features on this page as well. You can kind of see, you can go through there, the spouse coverage and different things on that page. And then here's your closing question, right? And you don't want to always just jump right into this, but when the person is there, they're interested, they're nodding their head. Here's my closing question that I like to use. Let me ask you, what day of the week would be the best for scheduling a workshop with your employees or rolling this out to your employees? Notice the key there. What day of the week? That's what you're wanting to know. And then I might even suggest, maybe like a Thursday or a Friday. Would that be the best? And I love it, too, because sometimes when I arrive, I'll arrive a few minutes early. And just so I can have a conversation with that receptionist and ask, what day of the week are y'all slow around here? What day of the week does it kind of slow down? And the receptionist sometimes will give me the answer. She'll say, yeah, well, actually, Tuesdays are our best day. That's the slow day for us. I know that I can then present that as an option to the TM. So I love that, but that's the closing question. What day of the week? Maybe a Tuesday, would that work? And then he or she's going to say, yeah, Tuesday is probably a good day to do that. What am I going to do then? I'm going to grab my calendar, not so fast, all right, but I'm going to take my calendar out and I'm going to say, let me look at a few Tuesdays coming up. I know next Tuesday is not going to work for me. We've got another enrollment that day, but what about the following Tuesday, the 21st? Would that work? And all of a sudden I'm into closing. I'm into setting a date with that decision maker. So I hope that that's helpful, because that, I'm telling you, that's a skill right there. Not just presenting the information, but closing the deal. I mean, actually getting a date set up. That's your objective. That's your goal, is to actually get a date, not just spark interest. Because if that were your goal, it'd be easy, right? People are interested in what we do, but it's getting it closed. It's getting it on the calendar, getting a date booked for the meeting. Let's talk for a second about the best types of enrollment settings. Obviously, number one, mandatory meetings with all the employees, right? Either collectively, small groups. I don't care if it's individually, but I want mandatory access to those employees. You're not going to get that in every group, but that's optimal. I mean, that's your preferred method of enrollment. So one question that I'll ask in the decision maker meeting, usually not at the close, but sometimes when I'm talking about those 5 areas of identity theft, I'm talking about the workshops, I'll say, what we could do is present a workshop, and I'll ask, do you have staff meetings? Do you all do like a staff meeting? And they'll say, yeah, we do a staff meeting every Tuesday at 9 a.m. So maybe what we could do is take a few minutes of that staff meeting to try to roll out this information. I like to use little lines like that throughout the meeting to kind of build up to the yes at the end, right? You get it in their minds thinking, yeah, that would actually work, right? They're visualizing doing the meeting. Staff meetings, roll call meetings. If you're working with the public safety market, roll calls are great, because most public safety entities have roll calls on a regular basis. Safety meetings work really well. Some companies do safety meetings on a monthly or quarterly basis. And if you can snag a few minutes of the safety meeting, I mean, that, quite frankly, identity theft makes a great safety topic. And so it's a great natural lead-in to present our information at a safety meeting. Shops or lunch and learns are good as well. Sometimes companies will make those voluntary if employees come out. We've got notices for those to try to drum up interest. Notice the lunch and learn there. I guarantee you will always increase participation. You'll increase attendance if you feed people. Okay, I mean that is a rule that has been around since the beginning of time. It's going to be around for a long time after you and I are gone. If you feed people, they show up. And so don't be afraid to buy a few pizzas. I mean, that you cannot be afraid to invest a few dollars in getting access to employees. We did a meeting just the other night, as a matter of fact, where we went in, we bought pizzas for the crowd. It was a staff meeting, and this was a church, their private school, and the only time that they could do their staff meeting was at 6 p.m. after all the kids, because they had younger children there as well. After all the kids were picked up and gone, then the administrator, the director, kept her staff around and did a short staff meeting. Well, we offered to buy pizza, and I offered that in the decision-maker meeting. I had said, if it's okay with you, I love addressing it that way. If it's okay with you, I'd like to maybe bring some pizzas and feed your staff. To date, I have never had someone turn that down. I've never had someone say, no, that's not okay with me. I mean, every time they say, oh, sure, that'd be great. But notice I offered. I'm not afraid to offer that. I know I might spend a little money on the pizzas, but I'm going to make a whole lot more money if I can get in front of their staff. And so, and it's not just getting the yes. It's not just the decision maker saying yes, but it's also, as that date gets closer, she was counting on me to bring the pizzas. So even though there were probably other people that came in, I mean, people that she worked with that said, I need some time in that meeting, she said, no, we've got to give our time to Harvard Risk Management. In her mind, she's thinking, because they're feeding us, so I got to give them their time. So I love offering that, and we showed up there, wrote a bunch of their employees up because we had pizzas and cookies, and we just fed them. And we spent a little money on that, but made a lot of money on the applications that we wrote. I want to cover with you, again, when you're in that decision-maker meeting, you got to talk about the benefits to the employees. I used to make the mistake of only talking about the benefits to the company, right, which there are a lot. We'll talk about those too. But you got to sell the decision maker on the benefits to their employees. They don't want to do something just because it benefits their company. They want to know that their employees are going to like what you're offering as well. So again, it's affordable access to the legal system. They can prepare or update their last will and testament. What a great benefit to their employees. These are some of those bullet points that you want to spend a little time on. They can save money on traffic tickets, document review, and legal advice. They can get credit reports and review those credit reports. They can set up a monitoring on their credit report. They can have identity restoration available to them as well. Again, talking about that and the fact that it's affordable. Never underestimate the power of that we offer an affordable benefit at 87 cents a day. Here are some benefits to the employer, to the company itself. This is a cutting-edge benefit that is offered at no direct cost to the employer, okay? And I'll sometimes like to address I know that it's going to be some administration on your part, but we're not asking you to directly pay for the benefit. This is going to be an employee-paid benefit. It's an employer benefit because it's going to help you, but the employees are going to actually pay for this. There's a high participation rate. You're going to look good, offering this to your employees. They're going to appreciate this. The employees are going to take less time off of work to deal with issues like identity theft or certainly legal issues that they deal with on a regular basis. It also creates an early warning system. I mean, think about for a data breach, if all your employees are on a monitoring plan and your company was breached and all of a sudden all your employees come in and say, hey, I got a notice that my information has been compromised, that might be a warning to you that you're the cause of that. So it can create an early warning system to detect data breaches, and then it also can mitigate damages caused by a data breach as well if you've offered these benefits. There's actually a reduction in liability if you lose employees' information, if you've offered them an identity theft protection as a company. We discussed the identity theft workshop. Again, it's a great tool to use. We're going to be doing a sample workshop here as part of this training. It provides employees with valuable education. It's not just a sales pitch, which I love. There's no cost to the employer for the workshop. And I'll say this, even though it's a great tool, it's not appropriate for every group. Not every group is going to want to do a workshop. You have to kind of leave that up to the decision maker. Here's why. A workshop takes longer. It's about a 30-minute investment of time versus a 10-minute investment of time. I can get up and present the benefit in 10 minutes flat. But if I'm going to do a full workshop, it's going to take 30, 35 minutes to do that. So it's not appropriate for everyone, but if they want to do a workshop, I think it's a great tool because that education is powerful in and of itself. But it also, think about, the more educated you become on identity theft, the more you're going to want a protection plan. So I think it sets you up for success there as well. In closing on this segment, I want to spend some time talking about the 5 most common objections that you're going to face in a decision-maker meeting. And here they are, and we'll talk about how to overcome these. As with any objection, it's important to overcome the objection, if you can, before it arises, right? Everyone in sales will tell you that's the time. If you can beat them to the punch, if you can actually say their objection before they say it and overcome it that way, you'll never get that objection from that person. And it softens the room so much. Can my employees use this against me? And of course the answer is no, but you've got to cover that. I usually do that when I'm in the legal plan benefit and I'm talking about the letters and phone calls. I'll talk about how powerful that is if you have a cell phone company that's overcharging you, or if you have an insurance company that denies a claim or a warranty issue. And then I'll make the point, I'll say, but I want you to keep in mind that the employees cannot use this plan against you. Obviously, we would not want to give them an attorney just to turn around and write you a letter, right? So we actually amend each policy so that they can never use it against you. Not just while they're employed here, even if you terminate them or they leave. For the rest of their life, they'll never be able to use this benefit against you. So it's actually some indemnity for your company as well. And I love pointing that out. It's a great way. If they ask it and you respond that way, it's not as powerful as if you just take the initiative and overcome the objection before it arises. The second one, my employees won't buy this. That's throughout the presentation. You've got to be talking about why the employees are going to buy it, because they can use it. This is not just another insurance plan. Remember the question that you asked, that opening question, what type of benefits are you offering now? A lot of the times if you have a small company, especially if the workforce is fairly blue collar, you'll have an owner or a decision maker that says, yeah, we've tried to offer a lot of stuff to our employees and it just didn't go over. They just don't buy anything. That's a clue to me that I need to address the fact of they're going to be able to use this benefit when they sign up, and that's why they're going to take it out. So I love addressing that throughout. Again, the usability factor of this is huge in not only people signing up, but in keeping the membership as well. I'll always point out, and usually when I'm on the pricing page, one of the features that's listed there is there's no contract on the coverage. And I'll always point out, even though we don't tie them into a contract, we have a very high retention rate because employees use it. They love it. I mean, why would they cancel? It's a great protection, especially if they're getting more out of it than they're ever putting into it. The third one there, let me gauge my employee's interest. I don't think you necessarily want the employer to do that. Surveys don't work. I mean, I've just, in 10 years, I've never had a group where they say, let me go talk to some of my employees, and it turns out real favorably. I mean, you don't want them to do that. So here's how I beat them to the punch on that. I'll say, you see where, this is on the pricing page, when I talk about that $5.98 a week, I'll go back to, again, the value. I'll address the payroll deduction, then I'll come back to the value and say, you can see why so many people would sign up. It's a great deal. I mean, this is a great benefit. And for 87 cents a day, people can afford that. I mean, it's a good deal for them. And then I'll say, it's not like if you went and surveyed them, they're going to show a lot of interest, because they probably won't until we actually do a presentation so that they understand it. But I'm telling you, we do that little presentation, even if it's just a 10-minute benefits presentation, they will see the value. And you're going to be like every other company that didn't know if their employees were going to sign up or not. But once they heard the presentation, we closed 60 to 70% of them. 60 to 70% of them choose to enroll in the plan. And so I love addressing that objection that way. The fourth one there, my employees won't be able to afford this benefit in this type of economy, especially in a bad economy. But I'll tell you how you address that. Again, affordability, right? We're talking about 87 cents a day. I very rarely will talk monthly numbers unless their employees are paid monthly, which is rare. I'll very rarely talk monthly numbers with an employer or employees. There's no need to, right? Brian Tracy teaches you take the amount, you break it down to the smallest amount possible to where it's almost ridiculous not to buy whatever it is that you're selling. In our sense, that's 87 cents. In our case, rather, that's 87 cents a day. Everyone can afford 87 cents. So if you're talking that number, you're not going to have this issue of, I don't think my employees will be able to afford this. And then, of course, the fifth objection there, let's do this at a later date. That's where you taking the initiative and setting a time, asking that question, what day of the week works best for you, and then taking out your calendar and actually setting a date, it really will prevent the decision maker from trying to put this off. The other way that you overcome that, you got to build urgency. And with a product like identity theft protection, that's easy to do. I mean, it is urgent that we get in front of their employees and protect their employees. I love hearing Brian Fahili follow up with companies. Sometimes he'll follow up and they'll try to put him off. They'll say, you know, why don't we wait till next month or a couple months from now? And I love Brian. He's very strong on that. He's assumptive. He's not over forceful, but he is strong. He'll say, you know, we can do that. But the truth of the matter is you have employees that are getting hit by identity theft right now. And we need to get this protection in their hands. We're only talking 10 minutes to roll it out to them. Let's get that. Let's get them the access to that protection so that they're not having to fight this problem on their own. You having that strong and assumptive attitude, and it's not about you. It's not about your commission, right? It's about those employees. It's not really even about the company. It's about those employees getting the protection, being covered now, not later, right? If you have an employer that thinks, The only reason you want to get in front of their employees is so that you can pay your bills next week. They're not going to work with you. But if they feel that you're genuinely interested in their employees and you're keeping their employees' best interest in your heart, they will put you in front of them, and they'll let you in, and you can present this benefit either in a workshop or in just a plain benefit enrollment setting with those employees. One last thing to cover is what we call the group grading scale. So keep in mind, just because you get a decision maker to say yes doesn't always mean that you've got an optimal group. You can kind of see here we use just like a report card, A, B, C, D, and F. If you think about a group that would get an A grade, would be a group that's payroll deduction with a mandatory meeting. I mean, that's really what you're looking for, right? Does that mean that that's every group that you're going to get is going to be an A group? No. So you don't have to be a straight A student with Harvard Risk Management. You can have some B groups. In fact, you can have some C groups. But you're just not going to get the participation that you would get with an A group if it's a C or a D group. B is a payroll deduction with voluntary meetings. Why is that not as good? Because you're not going to be able to get in front of all the employees like you would at a mandatory staff meeting or something like that. C is a bank draft with a mandatory meeting. I would rather have payroll and have it not be mandatory than have bank draft and be in front of everybody. Your participation, I think, will be higher. But that's the C group. A D group would be a payroll deduction in a room or some type of setting where you're not able to present to their employees. Now, does that mean that that's bad? No. It just means that you're not going to get the participation. So you can't walk into a group like that expecting that, hey, they have 100 employees. I'm going to go write me 50 or 60 because you're not going to get in front of 100 people, right? Remember, your goal is to get in front of 100 employees per month, not just open groups that have 100 employees, right? So it's getting in front of those people that moves the group up on the grading scale. And then, of course, the worst type of group is just a bank draft in a room. I mean, where they're just sitting you in a room, letting people come to talk to you individually if they want to. Some of you are taking those appointments just because you're glad to have an enrollment. I always recommend if that's what you're going to do, you're going to go sit in a room and talk to people if they want to come in and visit you, and especially if it's a bank draft. I'll give you 2 tips on that. Number 1, bring a book. Number 2, schedule it all day long. And there's a reason for that. You bring a book because no one's going to come talk to you. So you might as well make it a good book like How to Win Friends and Influence People or something so you can at least get some value from spending your day there. The reason that you schedule it all day long is so that you have such a bad experience that you won't make the mistake and do that again. Okay? So look for groups that are going to give you access to their employees. That's our goal, right? Not just open up groups, but getting in front of 100 to 150 employees a month is going to get us that 50 to 75 sales that we're looking for and make you that 6-figure income that you desire. So that's just some information on decision maker meetings. I appreciate it, and I'm excited for our next segment, which is enrolling those employees, getting that payday that we have here at Harvard Risk Management.